Hey everybody, it's Rachel, aka Pencil Butter, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about something that I think causes a little bit of confusion for marker artists, especially those who are really new to alcohol markers and just starting out, and that is the colorless blender. So I think a lot of the confusion behind this marker stems from its name. Despite being called a blender, it is actually not for blending two colors together. So when people come to me and say, hey, I've, colored my drawing and I try to use my blender to get my colors to look a little bit smoother and all it's doing is messing everything up, it's because it's actually not how it's meant to be used. So I'm going to show you guys today the way you're actually supposed to use a colorless blender marker. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I most often use the colorless blender marker. So say I'm coloring some pale skin or something, and I'm using this WG 0.5, which is a pretty pale color in itself, and I am getting a little bit of a light fade here because I'm using the brush tip. But it's not quite enough, and because I don't have a marker any lighter than this to blend it out, I'm going to use the colorless blender instead. And I'm just going to kind of fix this last little bit here to lighten it on into the white of the paper. Okay, another way that you can use the colorless blender that I see a lot of artists do is to actually lay out the colorless blender first. Now the reason that you would do this is because alcohol markers tend to blend together a little bit better when the ink is still wet on the paper. So laying out your colorless blender wets down the paper without actually putting down any pigment. So you can kind of blend your colors into the white of the paper a little bit easier. But I find that doing this, I still need to go back with the blender again and just blend it out just a little bit more. So I really don't use this method myself too often. Alright, now, the last way that I'm going to show you to use the colorless blender is a little bit different because it doesn't actually involve blending two colors together on the paper. So I'm going to start off with this CG2 and just lay a little bit down. And this color is a little bit too dark for me to just go in and blend out with my colorless blender, and I don't have a gray that's lighter than this in this particular brush marker. So what I'm actually going to do is blend the markers together, to blend these colors together within the colorless blender. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to touch this gray here to the colorless blender, and you can see that color's coming off. And that way I can go in here, and there's a little bit of that gray color there, but the more I color, the more it fades out. So it gives me a little bit of a transition here. This method isn't really perfect, but it is helpful when you need to bridge the gap between two colors and there's no color in between them. Now, this method is actually not limited to the colorless blender. You can actually touch two colored markers together and the ink will fade from one marker to the other. Say you want to make a gradient from a pink to a blue, and normally you would put a purple in between there, but say you just don't really have the right purple, you can touch those two markers together to create that in-between color. Okay, so that's basically all there is to the colorless blender marker. Now you can also use it to create textures and special effects that involve pushing color around just like you would with the colorless blender, which I've shown in a previous video. But for the most part, this is it. There's no big mystery behind the colorless blender marker, as long as you know how to use it right. Alright, so I hope this helps you guys out, and I will see you all next time.